We have mic on, we are recording, and welcome everyone to Monster Monday for November 16th, 2020. I am your host, DM Gallibond. And tonight on Monster Monday, we are going to be talking about a very special creature indeed. We will be talking about the Atropal. Okay, November 15th. I screwed up the date. Eh. Um, so the Atropal is a relatively new monster in the lore of D&D. Therefore, I have decided to also expand this edition a little bit by talking about humanoid titans, since the Atropal is classified as a titan. I am your host, DM Gallibond. You can find me on Twitch 3 nights a week hosting D&D games. And you can find me 7 days a week on my YouTube channel, where I do shorter form content, including Monster Monday. We talk about different aspects of D&D every day of the week. First thing we want to do, as always, is we want to send a special thanks out to Mo over at the Tabletop Bellhop. Mo is the OG when it comes to all things tabletop games, whether you are into card games, board games, party games, RPGs, whatever. Go over to his site. He's got all kinds of links to industry news, news about new games coming out, game developers, communities of people that play games online, all kinds of different things, podcasts where people talk about games, and live streams where people play the games that either you can be a part of or you can watch as a spectator. So go check him out over there. And let us go ahead and talk about tonight's monster. Yes, this lovely creature, the Atropal. An Atropal is a malformed and unfinished. Its wet, wrinkled, and bloated body is surmounted by a hairless, overlarge head set with glassy, vacant eyes. It constantly drools stinking ichor as it mouths obscenities. Its arms are too slender with tiny hands ending in cruelly sharp nails. An Atropal never walks but always floats, with its atrophied dead legs hanging useless below it. Uh, it's got a negative energy connection. The shriveled umbilical cord of an Atropal appears to trail off into nothingness, but in fact it attaches to the negative energy plane. This connection gives the Atropal power over death and undeath. The cord can be severed by a Vorpal sword or other Vorpal weapon, and doing so weakens the Atropal's tie to the negative plane. Now, you may be looking at this artwork and you may be saying, where have I seen this before? Well, there's a very famous Atropal in 5th edition lore, and the Atropal is the unborn, undead godling that a Sararak is trying to nourish using the Soulmonger at the bottom of the Tomb of Annihilation in the campaign by that same name. When you get down to the bottom of it and you see this big glass sphere with something hideous. Actually, no, it's not a glass sphere in that one. It's just a chamber with this big thing floating there, connected to the Soulmonger cylinder. Uh, this is what it is. And Acererak was hoping that by feeding it all of the souls of everyone who died in Faerun and everyone who had been brought back from the dead in Faerun, that he would be able to birth a god that, of course, he could control. But those pesky adventurers, just like the Mystery Machine teens and their stupid dog, they just had to get in the way. So Atropal lore. Atropal is ghastly, unfinished creation of an evil god cast adrift and abandoned long ago. Since an Atropal was never truly alive, it can't be raised from the dead or resurrected by any means. Even divine intervention can't breathe true life into this hateful, miserable horror. Yet, a Sararak figured out a way to possibly bring it to life. An Atropal can summon vestiges of creatures that died in the negative plane, which manifest as wraiths. These servants can exist outside the negative plane only by the Atropal's sheer force of will, and they quickly dissipate when the Atropal is destroyed. So, that's a clue that outside of a controlled environment like the Tomb of Annihilation, you will never fight the Atropal alone. It will always be summoning um, wraiths that will be going and attacking you. So, as a DM, that's something to keep in mind that you can use when you're building a party or building an encounter for your party. Okay, now we say every week that in D&D everything has a creature type, and the Atropal has like two types, but there's only one type that's officially designated in the monster manual, and that type is undead. So, undead, normally, aside from the Atropal, are once living creatures. Remember, we just said that the Atropal has never been alive, so it can't truly be brought back from the dead. Once living creatures brought into a horrifying state of undeath through the practice of necromantic magic or some unholy curse. Undead include walking corpses such as vampires and zombies, as well as bodiless spirits such as ghosts and specters. And now, okay. All right. So, pay no attention to the title up there. What we are going to be looking at is we were going to be looking at the properties of Titans throughout the ages. And we are going to start back in the earliest appearance of Titans. Why Titans? Well, because the entry for the Atropal in both Tomb of Annihilation and D&D Beyond's monster list calls the Atropal a Titan. So, since they don't have a class of monster for Titans in the monster manual, we should check out what Titans actually are and see see what properties of Titans it possesses and how that might inform when you're going to reskin or um, update this as a homebrew monster for your own players. All right, so Titans date back all the way to AD&D First Edition. They range in armor class from 2 to -3. Remember, back in those days, the lower the armor class, the better. So a -3 armor class is much better than a 2 armor class. Hit dice 17 to 22. Titans normally dwell on a plane somewhere above the material, but occasionally they'll visit the material plane for various periods of time. And to determine the armor class and hit dice of any given Titan, roll a 6-sided die. So they were a monster. They were a monster that had randomness built uh, into their hit dice. So on a 1 has an armor class 2 of 17 hit dice, all the way up to a 6 where it has an armor class of -3 and 22 hit dice. Then Titans can become invisible at will. They can levitate and become ethereal twice per day. They're enabled to employ both magic user and clerical spells of 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th level. And they can have a minimum of spells, minimum of 8 spells, and then a minimum of 8 magic user spells as well. Now, Titans possess 8 or more psionic abilities. Now, in AD&D, psionics was a thing. Psionics is kind of just sort of a little bit hinted at in 5th edition. Anytime you have something called psychic damage, that's kind of a nod back to the old psionics system. Um, and so we're not going to go into what all the psionic abilities are, since that's outside the scope of our discussion tonight. The psionic attacks always have no effect against Titans. So they can use psionics against PCs to screw them up. PCs, even if they're psionic users, no, psionics has no effect against Titans. Now, in addition to their own language, Titans are able to speak the 6 dialects of the races of giants, and all Titans are also conversant in the common tongue as well as that of chaotic good. Fun fact, back in the old days, every alignment had its own alignment language. Interesting. Okay, Titans deal with storm giants on highly amicable terms, and Titans appear very much as humans, but they're all very muscular, handsome, and wear no facial hair. Their dress and armor appears Greek in origin. Okay, and then in 2nd edition, you had they were 20 hit dice monsters with 0 armor class, 7d6 damage per attack, plus 14 strength bonus. They are gargantuan in size, 25 feet tall. And in combat, their basic attack is a great maul of the Titans, capable of attacking twice in a melee round and inflicting 7d6 damage per hit. May choose to make a single other attack. This form is so destructive and deadly, a Titan will use it only if there are no other options left. Form of each Titan's attack will be different. Some kick, some punch, some use a breath weapon, etc., etc. And the special attack deals 10d6 points of damage per hit and can be used every other round. Titans can become ethereal twice a day. All Titans are able to employ both mage or priest spells at 20th level spellcaster. In addition, all Titans have the following spell-like powers at 20th level of spell use, usable once per round, one at a time, at will. Everything from Advanced Illusion and Bless and Alter Self, all the way to, let's see, what's some of the other, Firestorm? That's pretty nasty. Being able to do Firestorm at will. Titans are livers of life, creators of fate, benevolent giants, and they are the most powerful of Titans, are almost godlike, and they actually came up with an entire sort of pantheon of Titans that, these are not demigods, these are not people that get worshipped, but these are individual Titans that they put in the game, and they gave specific descriptions to them. So, for instance, Algorn is a Titan that has influence over the seas, and he can create water whenever he chooses to. Maine is a Titan with dominion over felines, ability to change into a giant form of any cat. Porphil is a Titan with the power over growth, cause any immature life to grow to maturity. Maleficus, with influence over law of justice, can unerringly detect any spoken lie and any bad intention. Scylla, a Titan with the power over love, can remove any negative feelings from any being, except deities and greater powers. She has the ability to remove hatred, unhappiness, depression. Not Cilia. Cannot remove the feeling permanently, but at least for a day or so. And Gearzon, Titan with dominion over death, can take the life from any living being. And it should be noted, Gearzon has never used this ability unless commanded to by a deity. Gearzon's restraint and self-control is revered by other Titans. And then here talks about the greater Titans, said to be very close to the god, always accompany one. So some ideas like if you want to have uh, if your party has a cleric and you want them to, as they grow higher and higher in power, maybe you don't want them to actually interact with their deity in person. You could sort of have a Titan that could interact with your cleric in your game, sort of as a messenger or a companion or a friend of the deity that the cleric serves, and the Titan presumably would serve as well. All right, now in second edition, they also created these appendices. There was a monstrous compendium for Outer Planes, and basically this just repeats everything from the monsters manual. So no need to go through that. Now in third edition, a couple of things happened in the evolution of D&D. Armor class went to having higher armor classes better than having lower, and they introduced challenge ratings. So let's take a look at what Titans were like in third edition. They were 20d8 plus 280 hit points. Armor class 38. So yeah, good luck hitting that. Base attack plus 20. Base grapple plus 44. Okay, so full attack is that Warhammer. 4 attacks to that Warhammer, or 2 slams. Special attacks, oversized weapons. Abilities, strength of 43, dex of 12, constitution of 39, intelligence 21, wisdom 28, charisma 24. And then the challenge rating is 21. And so treasure, double the standard treasure, plus 4 half plate armor, and a gargantuan plus 3 adamantine warhammer. And Titans are statuesque beings of heroic proportions. So in combat, they wreak havoc with their massive warhammers. They have the ability to change shape. They can assume the form of any small or medium humanoid. Have an oversized weapon. Wields a great two-handed warhammer. Spell-like abilities. So they can do chain lightning with a DC 23. Charm monster, cure critical wounds, firestorm, etc., etc., etc. Caster level is 20, and save DCs are all charisma based. So then there's some additional spells they have if they are good or neutral alignments. And Titans of Evil alignments also have their own special abilities. And then it gives some suggested tactics for Titans. So prior to combat, they will cast Invisibility Purge against their enemies, or they will cast Invisibility on themselves. First round, they'll charge and attempt to sunder the weapon of the most dangerous foe. They can hurl chain lightning at opponents standing away from the fight. Round 2, full attack against the disarmed opponent and hurl chain lightning at other opponents. Then round 3, back away from the first opponent and use Maze or Meteor Swarm on any spellcaster causing trouble. Round 4, sunder the weapon of the next most effective combatant or use greater dispel magic on all nearby opponents. Round 5, full attack against any nearby opponent or use firestorm. Or use another quicken chain lightning if the foes seem really dangerous. And Titan usually reserves its gate and etherealness abilities to escape a fight that is not going well. So there you go. That's a nice little tactical thing for running a Titan as a DM. That's a nice little thing that 3rd edition Monster Manual gave you for some of the special monsters that would be considered kind of like solo monsters or boss monsters. They would give you tactics. All right, now 4th edition is where the Atropal actually first entered the D&D game. So the Atropals are calamitous beings scorned by life. They now only exist to bring destruction and despair to everything around them. And with a successful religion check, Atropals, or a character knows that Atropals are unfinished godlings that had enough of divine spark to rise as undead. A few roam freely across the plains, others are sealed away in separate realms or buried beneath the ruins of dead civilizations. And then an encounter group, Atropal gathers undead to it and might have a squad of abyssal ghouls or vampire spawn at its disposal. Vampire lords, liches, and draco liches all have reason to value an Atropal ally. So here's a level 28 encounter. An Atropal, which is a level 28 elite brute. 2 Sorrow-sworn Reapers, level 27 soldiers, and 2 Shadow Raven Swarms, level 27 brutes. So, in 4th edition, this is what the Atropal look like. Far cry from our 5th edition misshapen god thing that Sararak was trying to create down at the bottom of the Tomb of Annihilation. They get plus 18 on their initiative. They get plus 20 on their perception checks. They have an aura that extends out 25 feet, Shroud of Death. At the beginning of its turn, undead allies regain 20 hit points, and all living creatures in the aura take 10 necrotic damage. Radiant damage to the Atropal ends the Shroud of Death, but the Atropal can restore the aura as a minor action. And that's just kind of at will. It can do that anytime it wants to. 634 hit points, bloodied value of 314, armor class 42. So it's immune to disease, necrotic, and poison damage, but it's vulnerable to radiant damage. Now, in 4th edition, vulnerable 10 means that you hit it with 1 point of radiant damage, it automatically takes an extra 10. So your damage when you deal radiant damage to these things is always whatever your damage is plus 10. It has necrotizing touch out to 10 feet, plus 29 attack, 2d10 plus 10 damage, and the target takes ongoing 15 necrotic damage and a -2 penalty to all attack rolls, and they lose any resistance or immunity to necrotic damage. Wow, that's nasty. Save ends all of that. And then an Atropos Burst recharges when a living creature drops to 0 hit points within the Atropal's aura. Close Burst out to 25 feet. 48 plus 5 necrotic damage, and the target loses a healing surge. The Atropal gains 1 action point if it hits any creatures with Atropos Burst. Action points were you really had an action-based economy in 4th edition, and I mean, which is similar to 5th edition. Action point would be something that you could use to get an extra action on a turn, and normally you're only allowed to have one of those, and sometimes when you fight solo monsters, they will have two of those. But the Atropal is able to recharge those when it kills its enemies. So even if it's already um, used its allotted action points, it can gain another one from this. So yeah, really, really nasty creatures. Atropal floats towards living creatures and tries to envelop as many of them as it can in its Shroud of Death aura. Relies on hit points and speed to outlast and outmaneuver its opponents. Once surrounded, it uses Atropal Burst and then spends an action point to make a necrotizing touch against the most wounded creature. Continues to attack this foe with necrotizing touch, hoping to slay it and recharge its burst. So yeah, that is the 4th edition Atropal. And now we get to the 5th edition Atropal. Okay, it's a huge undead. See right there? Titan. Neutral evil. Armor class 7. Hit points 225. So, yeah, these things are really easy to hit in 5th edition because they're just kind of there. Saving throws, con plus 11 and wisdom plus 9. So they do have magic resistance, advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. Negative energy aura. Creatures within 30 feet cannot regain hit points, and any creature that starts its turn within 30 feet takes 10 necrotic damage. So if the Atropal is struck by a Vorpal sword wielder, can cut the Atropal's umbilical cord instead of dealing damage, and cutting that negates or eliminates the negative energy aura feature. So if you know you're going to be fighting an Atropal, put a Vorpal sword in your beefiest fighter's hands, point him at it, and say, "Go, kill, cut that cord." Turn resistance. Atropal and any other undead creatures within 30 feet has advantage on saving throws against any effect that turns undead. So it's not immune to being turned, but it has advantage on it. So touch attack deals 3d6 necrotic damage. Ray of Cold is kind of like a super powered Ray of Frost. Deals 66 cold damage. Life Drain. Target one creature can see within 120 feet and succeed on a DC 19 con save or take 8d8 necrotic damage on a failed save. Oof. And then Summon Wraith, recharge of 6. So every round at the start of its turn rolls a d6. If it gets a 6, this ability recharges after it uses it, of course. And the Atropal can take 3 legendary actions. It can make a touch attack, Ray of Cold attack, or a wail. And the Withering Wail, any creature within 120 feet that can hear the wail must succeed on a DC 19 Constitution saving throw or gain 1 level of exhaustion. So if it wasn't bad enough that this thing, deals negative energy or deals necrotic damage to everything that's close to it, it can just scream at you and cause you exhaustion. That's pretty bad. Okay. And yeah, that is the Atropal. All right. So let's go back and take a look at the rest of our discussion about the Atropal and Titans. Okay, now when we talk about using Atropal in encounters, I focus on 5th edition because clearly we've seen how they have different hit dice, different challenge ratings all over the place in various editions of D&D. So in 5th edition, The Atropal is a CR 13 monster. So what I like to do is I like to think if you're gonna set this monster against a party, what makes it a hard encounter against a party of 5 PCs of the same level? So if you have a level 8 party going up against an Atropal with no other enemies on the battlefield, it's a borderline deadly encounter. Now we all know that with that summon wraith ability, that thing's probably going to be summoning wraiths every time it can. So that is going to mean that it will not be by itself. So level 8 party, you're probably dooming them to uh, a painful and horrible death if you send them against an Atropal. Now, level 9 and 10, that's a hard encounter. Just the Atropal by itself. 11 and 12, a party of 11th or 12th level, that becomes a medium encounter. Now, if you want to make it a hard encounter, you can add a Bone Devil to the mix. Bone Devil plus the Atropal will make it a hard encounter for a level 12, borderline deadly encounter for level 11. Now, at level 13 through 17, it's an easy encounter for using a single Atropal. So, if you want to make, let's say, a level 17, if you want to make it a um, difficult encounter, a borderline deadly encounter, you need to add a second Atropal and you add a Chasme Demon. Now, so you add an extra CR13 monster, and then you add, I believe, the Chesme is a CR5 monster, I believe, is what they are. So that turns it into a hard encounter, and you could see how tactically, if you put these Atropals sort of in an area where they got to sort of define the boundaries of the battlefield, they could really sort of mess with your party because of those overlapping auras that they have, and really kind of put kill zones in areas on the battlefield that would be just devastating for your party to deal with if you put two of those things out there against them. But hey, level 17, they ought to have figured out what they're doing. Okay, placement in campaigns. Where would you use an Atropal? I like to think of the Atropal as a great sub boss in a middle tier 3 campaign. Perfect example is the Atropal at the bottom of the Tomb of Annihilation. Now, you've fought your way all the way through that stupid tomb, and you've gotten all the way down to the bottom. And then you come to this big pit of lava, and there's this Atropal there, and there's a Soulmonger there, and you're supposed to destroy the Soulmonger and kill this Atropal. Well, as you start doing that and you shatter the hell out of that Soulmonger, and all of the souls are freed, and you land the killing blow on the Atropal, you think everything is done. You think that, oh, finally, we can go and get some rest now. But no. What happens? A Sararak himself shows up. I think all CR21 of him, if I remember correctly. I mean, normally a Lich is like CR17, but he's just such a badass that he is over and above what a Lich is supposed to be. Puts him right on the cusp of being a deity himself in terms of the power that he has. And then he's really pissed off that you have ruined his precious experiment. So he's going to teach you a lesson about meddling with him. Yeah, Tomb of Annihilation is a an encounter or a fight that you are not supposed to survive. Your party is not supposed to survive that fight at the end of Tomb of Annihilation. Yes, you might successfully defeat the Atropal and destroy the Soulmonger, but you are supposed to die when uh, a Sararak shows up. All right. Now, how could you reskin the Atropal? The Atropal is such a unique and hideous and incredibly niche monster. When I was coming up with, when I was working on this episode, I was thinking, how the hell would you even think about reskinning this thing? But I gave it a little bit of thought, and I thought, okay, how does this Atropal operate? It operates on negative energy. So let's focus on that as a power source, and then let's think, how could you modify that, make it something different? So imagine some kind of entity in some kind of parallel shard of the multiverse that is trying to create something new using radiant energy, and the power source, the way it powers that radiant energy is through the destruction of something old. So maybe there's creatures that have similar stats and similar abilities to the Atropal, but everything is powered by radiant energy, and you consider them celestial instead of undead. And it's still going to mess you up because they're still going to be just bent on destroying this old in order to make fodder for the creative force to create something new out of the ashes of the old. But yeah, you could have something come along like the Atropal, just destroying whole swaths of part of a game world or something like that, in service to whatever this other new creative power is. You also could think about things from the various elemental planes, that something that somehow come into the natural world from the border of the elemental planes and is using a power source, say like fire or like lightning, um, in a very destructive way. So you could have like this whole aura of fire around this thing, or a whole aura of storm around this thing, where it's always crackling with lightning energy. And when you come within that area, it's just lightning energy uh, goes out to everything within that aura uh, around the lightning Atropal, or whatever you would call it in your game world. So that's that's what I'm that's where I would be leaning. Now I'm sure there's 100 other things that you could do with it, but those were the first few things that popped into my head about how you might reskin and repurpose the Atropal to make it something fresh, new, and unique for your players to encounter in your game world. All right. I am looking at the chat and I see no questions right now. So I am going to go ahead into the wrap up and I will look at chat again. And if there are any questions, we will go ahead and answer those. All right. I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday for November 16th, 2020. We've talked about the Atropal. I have 3 shows that I do every week on these are actual play D&D campaigns. There's a 5th edition Planeswalking campaign Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. Eastern, a 5th edition Sword Coast Chronicles, which is our love letter to the 5th edition published campaigns. That happens Thursday nights at 8 p.m. and then the Lost Mine of original D&D. It's replaying through the Lost Mine of Phandelver, the basic set adventure that came with the release of 5th edition, but everything is replaced with first edition, or not even first edition, it's original D&D monsters, characters, rules, encounters, combat system, the works. It's a very, it turns a familiar story into something that plays very differently. Uh, Characters can die a lot more easily in that edition. Uh, the characters level at different rates. Combat is so different. How different is it? Combat is so different that you roll initiative every round, but it's one initiative roll for the entire side. So if the PCs win, all the PCs get to go before any of the monsters. But if the monsters win, all the monsters get to go before the PCs do. And then at the end of the round, you roll initiative again. So it's possible that you could have the monsters go first, like 3 rounds in a row. Or you could have the monsters go first in the first round, and then the second round, so they go first, then the players go second. Then initiative could switch over to the players, so the players could get to take a second turn before the monsters ever get to go again. So it makes things very interesting, and there are stages. So um, there's phases of each round, and only certain actions can happen within each phase. So it's a very different feel to combat, and makes tactics play out a little bit differently. All right. Still don't see any questions. And then obviously we have my Twitch channel where all those games are played, YouTube, all the archives from my actual play games, and all the Monster Monday archives, as well as all the other weekday content, are out there on YouTube. And then I do have a Patreon. If you like what we're doing, you want to support us, we would love to have you join our Patreon. All right. That is going to do it for this week's Monster Monday. And as I sign off, I will do so as I always do by reminding you to watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everybody.